Welcome back to Coin Nexa Vault. Today we are covering 3 Washington quarters that deserve a serious second look, and I am not talking about face value. I am talking about coins with real production anomalies, real collector demand, and real money behind them at auction. And the final coin on this list is the one that genuinely stops experienced dealers mid-sentence. So stay with me all the way to the end because that last reveal is worth every second of your time. The 1994 Washington quarter is the kind of coin that gets passed over 1,000 times before one person finally stops, holds it up to the light, and realizes they are looking at something the Denver Mint never intended to release. What makes certain 1994 quarters extraordinary is a die crack variety combined with a subtle but verifiable double die on the obverse, and certified examples of this pairing in MS66 and above have moved through specialized auction channels in the range of several hundred to well over $1,000 depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. To check your own coin, look at the lettering in Liberty on the obverse, specifically the letters L and I. On the double die variety, you will see a faint but distinct secondary impression just slightly south of the primary letters, not a shadow from the light but a genuine second strike image pressed into the metal itself. Now here is the historical backdrop that makes this even more interesting. 1994 was a period of extremely high production volume at the Denver Mint, with hundreds of millions of quarters being churned out under significant schedule pressure. And it is exactly that kind of high-speed, high-volume environment where die pairs wear unevenly, where quality control windows get compressed, and where coins with meaningful errors slip through the sorting process and land directly in circulation. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarter varieties have been hunting the 1994 double die for years, precisely because high-grade survivors are genuinely scarce. Most circulated examples show too much wear on the fine doubling details to be gradable at the level where the real premium kicks in. That is the gate. Finding one is one thing. Finding one that has never been spent, never rolled across a counter, never sat loose in a pocket for a decade, is a completely different challenge. Of course, whether your specific coin carries any premium at all depends entirely on its condition, the sharpness of the doubling, and whether a third-party service like PCGS or NGC confirms the variety under authentication. That certification is what turns a promising coin into a documented, marketable asset. And if you think the 1994 just raised the stakes, hold that thought, because the next coin on this list is carrying a story that goes considerably deeper. Next, 1981 Washington quarter, and this one has a reputation in variety collecting circles that the 1994 simply cannot match yet, because the 1981 sits at the intersection of a known die variety issue and a mintmark anomaly that makes attribution genuinely competitive among serious collectors. The specific detail to chase on the 1981 is what variety specialists catalog as a repunched mintmark, where the mintmark shows clear evidence of having been punched into the working die more than once at a slightly different angle, leaving a secondary impression visible just to the northeast of the primary mintmark. And to check this on your own coin, hold it under a loupe or strong magnifying glass and look directly at the mintmark positioned on the obverse just to the right of Washington's neckline, where the ribbon meets the collar. A well-struck example of the 1981 RPM variety in MS65 has sold through major numismatic auctions in the range of several $100s, with top condition specimens pushing meaningfully higher when the repunching is dramatic and fully visible. The production context here matters. 1981 was the final year before the U.S. Mint transitioned to a new mintmark application process, meaning that hand-punched mintmarks, with all of their human variability and potential for misalignment and repunching, were still the standard at Denver, which is precisely why this variety exists on 1981 quarters and not on issues from just a few years later. That historical timing makes the 1981D RPM not just a curiosity but a genuine artifact of the last era of hand-applied mint marks, and collectors who understand that context pursue high-grade examples with real intensity. The challenge, as always, is condition. Repunching detail is fine, surface-level information that disappears quickly under even moderate circulation so the coins that carry genuine auction premiums are the ones that went from the mint to a roll and stayed there untouched for decades. Whether yours qualifies for that premium depends on what a professional grader sees under examination, and PCGS or NGC attribution of the RPM variety is the step that makes the difference between an interesting coin and a documented collectible. Now keep that repunched mintmark story in mind, because the quarter we are covering next has a variety so distinct, so visually dramatic, and so consistently sought after by advanced collectors that it makes the 1981D feel like a warm-up act. Next, 1971 Washington Quarter. And here is the thing about this coin that most people simply do not know. 1971 was the first year that Washington quarters were struck in the clad copper-nickel composition that replaced the 90% silver alloy used in earlier decades, and that transition created a production environment full of die adjustment challenges, strike inconsistencies, and variety opportunities that collectors are still cataloging today. The most prized 1971 Washington quarter variety is the double die obverse, where the hub doubling is visible not just in the lettering but in Washington's actual portrait, specifically in the ear detail and the hairline above the temple, which on the strongest examples shows a clear, separated secondary image that is unmistakable even without magnification once you know where to direct your eyes. To find it on your own coin, look at Washington's AR on the obverse, positioned roughly in the center right of the portrait, and look for a doubled outline along the inner ear cartilage. On a strong DDO specimen, that doubling is not subtle, it is a genuinely visible separation that jumps out the moment you look at it correctly. The auction history on high-grade 1971 DDO quarters is well documented. A PCGS-certified MS-67 example with clear, dramatic doubling has reached into the thousands of dollars at major coin auctions, driven by the combination of the variety's historical significance as a first-year clad issue and the genuine scarcity of mint state survivors that never spent a day in circulation. Think about the production reality of 1971. This was a coin introduced to a public already accustomed to the old silver quarters, and a huge percentage of the 1971 issues were immediately spent, used, and worn down in commerce because they were a new, unfamiliar denomination composition and people simply treated them as pocket change without a second thought. The survivors that escaped that fate and stayed pristine are genuinely rare at the top grades. And when the double die variety overlaps with that scarcity, you have a coin that experienced collectors actively compete for. The detail work on your specific example, the sharpness of the doubling, the surface preservation, the luster quality, all of that is what a PCGS or NGC grader will evaluate before any premium is confirmed, and that third-party certification is the non-negotiable step between owning an interesting coin and owning a graded, attributed, auction-ready piece. If you have got a coin like any of these sitting at home, drop a comment and let me know. And if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one.